Welcome to another month of our All Booked discussion. It's something we love to get together. We spend a lot of time reading and reading apart from each other, and it's really fun to come together at this meeting and share our thoughts with each other about what we've been reading and what suggestions we have for others and what suggestions we can get from our community and from each other. To start with, we want to talk a little bit about a reading tip. We have an article that will be being posted over on our blog, and Tiffany prepared this article and goes through some tips for how to help struggling readers. So be sure to go over there. There's some really great suggestions, and she's just going to highlight a couple of those for us to get going today.
Yeah, a little while ago, I had a friend who said that she had a little girl who was struggling to read. And so I've done a little bit of research, and it's been interesting, but also enlightening. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about is keeping things in perspective. So in other countries, this was really interesting to me. Like in Finland, they don't even start formalized school instruction until age 7. So
I
they're
wish
not.
I was here.
Wouldn't that be awesome? I know. So they're not expecting their kids to read at age 4. They're just starting things at 7, and I thought that was so good. um, and the next little tip is to broaden the reading material. So I don't know if any of you guys read Garfield growing up, or like Sunday comics in the newspaper, but comics and graphic novels that are all the rage right now are really good to help. The artwork helps cue interest in the story. So that helps kids be more excited about reading.
I really liked that suggestion in reading through that article. It came from, see if I can pull this up really quickly, from Dana Sheridan, who is the Education and Outreach Coordinator at Princeton University's Kotzen Children's Library. And when she mentioned that, because she specifically says that a lot of kids have learned to read or had reading breakthroughs with Garfield books, it reminded me that our own oldest loves Legos, and for a while the only thing he would read were Lego construction manuals, and he would just sit and stare at the manuals and the pictures for hours. And rather than try to
Here, I'll just have to show you. There's no words in these. But this is what he would look at. He would just like stare at this and read it.
Confidence building though, right?
Yeah, it's good.
Mm-hmm. And the neat thing was, rather than like fight against that, we just worked with that. And what we came across one day in our social media feed, we actually saw an ad for a Lego magazine, and it's really awesome. Lego does like a quarterly magazine for kids who are interested in Legos, and it's free. And so we subscribed him to the magazine, and he devoured it. It was awesome. It was like right what he was interested in, lots of images, some reading. So yeah, it really struck a chord with me when I read her suggestion. And we talked a little bit about graphic novels last month, but in our newsletter, you'll see that May seems to be like the month of the graphic novel. There are lots of graphic novels coming out this month. So we'll have a link to those on our reading platform, and in the newsletter, you can check out the full list, but just as a couple of teasers to highlight. The one that really caught my attention, and we talked about this, that lots of classics are coming out as graphic novels, but the first Magic Treehouse book, Dinosaurs Before Dark, is being released as a graphic novel. So
I'm excited about that. It's a
yeah.
super into those right now. He listens before bed to Boxcar Children or Magic Treehouse. So I think he's gonna really love the illustrated version.
Totally. I grew up with Magic Treehouse. Our kids now read Magic Treehouse, so I'm very interested to see the conversion into a graphic novel there. And you can check out, we'll have a link to the full list. So now we get to move into a look at new releases and what everyone has been enjoying, and the new releases. Who wants to go first this month?
I'll talk about the little engine that could So everybody has probably read The Little Engine. I love that book. So I was really interested to see that they have, actually didn't know that they had this series. It's called, well, actually, I don't know what the series is called, but this book is called Welcome to New York, A Little Engine That Could Road Trip. So I think that they just visit all the different states. And so this one talks all about New York City, and the little engine goes to Central Park and visits the Empire State Building. So it's a cute little read, and also helps a monkey along the way. Of course, the little engine has to help somebody, so cute little story.
So I know like you guys have like a soft spot in your hearts for New York City. Still like good for people that aren't like New York City lovers at heart, do you think?
Yeah, if you're interested in landmarks around the world, but it is, I mean, it is a book that highlights different parts of New York City. So if that's not interesting to you, there's still a little poll, about this monkey that's trying to find his family. So you can just jump on that train.
Funny. In board books, there were also a couple that used to be picture books that are now being released as board books this month that I think would be really cute for Father's Day. One is Rory the Dinosaur, Me and My Dad, and then the other one was Because Your Daddy Loves You. And that one's by Andrew Clements. So that's, I love books by Andrew Clements in general. So that was fun to see that picture book get turned into a board book. And then the other one that's coming out, that the other two I've read and they're good. The one I haven't read yet is Mrs. Pinnacle's Hiking Alphabet, but we sent a lot of these in our book boxes because they're just so cute, this series.
We love Mrs. Pinnacles. We're excited about that one too.
Does anyone else like sometimes really wish they knew who Mrs. Pinnacle was? Yeah. I do. I've looked all over. I can't figure out who she is. So Jessica Ford is the illustrator, but Mrs. Pinnacle writes the books.
Yeah, I love that part about that series too, the mystery of Mrs. Pinnacle. Such a fun part of that.
No, it kind of like really makes me want to have a pseudonym if I ever write a book and just be totally anonymous.
I took a look at those two board books that you mentioned as well, Rory the Dinosaur and Because Your Daddy Loves You, and that's the Andrew Clements one. That one was like very fun, but it was like that is awesome. I would aspire to be that dad because I'm like the dad that
at your heart a little bit, right? Like I'm sometimes the first dad.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's the structure of the book. Is it says like a dad is with his boy and they're like going along or his girl and it's like, I could say to you now, buckle up and be quiet because we're going on a trip. But what I will say is let's sing a song together. Like, and too many times I was like, that's what I say is what the first dad says.
For me, though, as I like went along, they felt less like that to me. Like the first couple, I was like, ooh, like I do that. But then like I felt better about myself as a parent as the book went along. I'm like, oh yeah, like I would do okay on a lot of these. I'm not failing every single one. But yes, if you get guilt tripped, maybe don't read this book.
Yeah, no, they're both really cute. I think they'd both be awesome board books.
So in the picture book category, there's some really fun things coming out too. By far and away, my favorite one that I've read that's coming out is called Sakamoto Swim Club. Has anyone else read that one?
I read that one. Yeah, so cute.
It's so amazing. So Chan, I know you love like nonfiction picture books.
Yeah.
And I feel like I don't love them as much all the time because I feel like a lot of times it's like, no, like this is about like the story, like we're gonna like pound this inspirational story into your head and like here's like history in a picture book form. I mean, clearly the well done ones do better than that. But a lot of nonfiction picture books are just like really long and the storytelling I feel like is honestly a little bit lacking. And this one is just so it's a true story of a Maui swim team that they started off the kids would like recreationally swim in irrigation ditches while their parents worked on plantations. And like the sheriff, police officer would always come and like kick them out. And a local school teacher noticed this happening and talked to the sugar company and said like, hey, can I have permission to train these kids in your irrigation dishes for a swim team? And so like he got permission to do that. They like trained going against the current, and then the sugar company built them a swimming pool, a community swimming pool, and they trained in that. And eventually, after they had to take a break for a war, but in 1948, some of them got to go to the Olympics, and one of them won a gold medal. But it's told in these like really short rhyming, I'm gonna butcher it. It's not couplets, but like really like 10 words per page, and the illustrations tell the rest of the story. And like really lyrical, a really fun read aloud, and just really well done. Now that I'm on, do you have anything to add, Tiffany?
I love that, Jane. I was just going to say the same thing, that it is the cutest little rhymes on each page, but then there's a little preface at the beginning, so you know like a little bit of the backstory, and then there's more at the end, so you can read more. And I just thought that was a good way to do it, you know, because the story's fun, it's short, it's simple, but there's a little bit at the beginning and then more at the end, because you want to know more. You want to know like, wow, this, because it's such a great story, you know, and great tribute to this teacher too.
Really it's kind of amazing what a single person can do if they believe in you.
Yep. So cool.
I've added it to my wish list on the platform. Totally going to check that one out, because you're right. It's right up my alley.
Another book that I read is called The Collectors, and this was a cute little adventure story about these two little friends, and one was really good at one part of the project and one was really good at another part of the project. Jane, you can help me. I can't remember what their specific roles were, but it was so cute. Do you remember?
Cataloging, one cataloged and one like found stuff.
Yes, there we go. So they had this wall of like their collections, things that they found out on their adventures, and they had one spot left, so they went out on an adventure to go find like the perfect thing to put in that spot. But as they went out, they just, you know, they kept passing things by. It wasn't the right thing for their, you know, for the perfect spot on their wall. So they went farther than they'd ever been and seen things that they hadn't ever saw, but they didn't come back with anything. So I think at first they were a little disappointed, but at the end of the book, they saw these little birds that hatched, and it just was cute to think about. Sometimes, you know, we have this goal in mind, this plan, and we want it to work out perfectly. And it's not until the end that we realize like it was still a really great adventure. We explored more than we thought we would, and saw more, anyway, discovered more things than we thought we would. And so I thought it was cute, you know, they weren't disappointed. They saw the bright side of things. So I don't know if you have anything to add, Jane, but cute little story.
No, I thought it was cute too. And in case anyone's worried, they did not put the birds on their wall at the end. They just enjoyed the discovery.
Thank you, Jane. Yes.
No animals were harmed.
No animals were harmed in the making of this book.
That's right. They might have taken a picture. They take a picture and put it there.
I don't remember. I thought they still had this space at the end. Time for more adventuring.
Yeah. Cute.
Another picture book that's coming out with the animal tie-in, I mean, very loosely tied in, but Hattie and Hudson. And this is about a little girl who kind of discovers, he looks like the Loch Ness Monster to me. I mean, it's not officially the Loch Ness Monster, but that kind of like sea creature, lake dwelling. And they like kind of develop this friendship, and the townspeople are afraid of the monster and want to get rid of it. And she constructs a way to help them see that he's friendly. And in the end, everyone loves him. And really cute illustrations. It's, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's the same person that does the illustrations for Mercy and Watson.
Yeah, you're right.
So yeah, they're really well done, really fun and funky. Just the right amount of funky.
Cool.
It's cute. Yeah, as I was just exploring the new releases, I noticed 2 new picture books coming out that are about the survivor tree at the 9/11 ground zero. So we realized that, you know, it's 2021 this year, so it's the 20-year commemoration of 9/11. Because I wondered why there were 2 books about this tree, but It's pretty cute. One book is called The Branches of Hope, and the other one is called This Very Tree. So Branches of Hope, it talks about, I don't know if you guys have heard the story, but when the two towers came down, they were searching through the ashes and they saw some green leaves and branches coming up through the ashes. And that was just a sign of hope to everybody and of life, new life, during that really devastating time. So they took that tree and they took it to another spot of ground and they nourished it. And then once it was growing, they went and planted it back in the memorial grounds. So it's just the story of how that all happened.
Do you guys remember where you were on 9/11? I feel like I was on like the lower end of that. Yeah. I don't know if you even would, Becca.
I do. Yeah, I remember it was right before school. And I remember my mom getting a call from my grandma and turning on the news in her basement and not knowing really what had happened, and then going to school and learning more about what had happened from the teacher.
I had some terrific teachers, but that's one thing that I look back at and wish they would have handled differently. And that is, I remember also that morning and getting to school and realizing that something had happened and someone had the TV on. And then I think the first day, the first class of the day was my math class. And like once the bell rang, like we turned off the TV and went about the day as normal. And we went into English class and did the same thing. Like we had a vocabulary quiz or something. And I feel like that day was a day to like push pause and let's watch and let's experience this that's happening and talk and learn together. But yeah, I definitely remember that morning.
Yeah, I remember being at school too. I don't remember seeing it before I went, but I remember my teachers having the TV on. But I feel similarly to Chandler that they didn't stop and chat about what was happening. I think I just knew briefly and like learned bits and pieces as I went throughout the day. So sad day.
Yeah. I was in 5th grade and I was in New York at the time, not New York City, but New York State. And yeah, all the teachers were just like out in the hallway watching on one of those like TV rolling carts. We didn't have like TVs in the classroom, but they were all out. And we were just like all sitting in the classroom wondering, like, had no idea what was going on. And yeah, made it all the way home from school without knowing what was going on. And then my mom had it on the news when I got home. And one of the girls in my art class was supposed to be on one of those planes and like got delayed and missed her flight. So,
wow.
Oh, it's really close to home.
Yeah. I have a terrible memory, but I do remember 9/11.
Yeah.
I'm excited to add probably both of those to our library to help our kids because I think for everyone, and especially because we do really like the city and have lived there, to help them understand that part of the history of the world and the city and the country. One more picture book that I wanted to mention, I have not read it yet, but it just caught my eye because I'm a big classic rock fan, and I noticed that
we're so waiting for our Earth Day concert, Chandler.
Yeah, I'll have to send it on the link. There is a link to a performance, and it's been shared at a few of my bandmates. The link crops up when it's like they're at a new job and they're getting introduced, and they cut to the link. So maybe I can send it around sometime. But yeah, the song Peace Train, the Cat Stevens song Peace Train, is coming out in a picture book with illustrations by Peter H. Reynolds. So he's very well known and respected illustrator and author of The Dot and many other beloved children's books. So I think that one's going to be a really quality addition to the library as well. So it's on my list, Peace Train.
Nice.
Sounds fun.
My list is getting long.
Well, it'd be a little depressing to have a short TBR list, right?
Yeah.
Yes, just helps keep the motivation high. Gotta get through it all. Well, we'll see if any of these easy readers are gonna add their way into your list, Chandler, because there's some fun ones coming out. And one of them I read is called The Trouble with Tattletails, and it's in the Fabled Stables chapter or easy reader series, if any of you have heard of that. And this is a really sweet, easy reader. There's great illustrations, colorful and fun, and quite a lot of them. So not too many words per page, really short chapters. And I feel like easy readers sometimes a lot of times the stories just aren't that fun, especially you want them to be especially fun at that stage of reading because kids are reading by themselves and you want them to learn to love it. So I really liked this one. It was about this boy who works in the Fabled Stables, and it has this magical feel because the stables shake and a new stall is created, and a little name tag goes on the stall that says the name of this creature they need to go find and help. And so it's all about helping and bringing these creatures in and taking care of them, which I like that positive look on it. And the stables shaking just kind of gets you going and makes you know that this is going to be a fun, magical book. And the Tattletail creature is this fuzzy, furry, tail-looking creature, and it sticks on the back of people like a tail and multiplies. So it's done that in this town, and they have to figure out how to get the tail off of everyone and bring it back to the stables. And I won't spoil it all, but it has great messaging that's not too overt, and it talks about treating the beasts really kindly because it's their job to care for all of them, no matter how hard to love, is a quote that I loved from it. And yeah, there's a few really great messages, especially about tattletelling, with that creature in mind and not caring what others think of you. So that's a really fun one coming out. And then another one I'm excited to read is called Jojo McCoons, and it's by Dawn Quigley. And it's about this 7-year-old girl on an Ojibwe reservation, and just talks about her navigating friendships, and it's supposed to have a lot of humor in it, and it's the first in a new series. And then one other plug, we've talked about the She Persisted chapter early reader series that has started, and there's a new one coming out this month about Nellie Bly, who was a journalist and one of the first investigative reporters ever. So that's exciting.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
The good news.
Just add all three of those.
Yeah, I was going to say the good news is that at least one of those was on my list already. Some time ago I read an interview that the Hornbook that Roger Sutton from the Hornbook did with Jonathan Auxier, the author of the Fabled Stables, and I haven't read anything from Jonathan yet, and I added a couple of his books. So yeah, the Fabled Stables on my radar, along with Sweep. He just looks like he had quite a few fun titles, and I haven't read anything of his yet. So I'm looking forward to trying those out. In chapter books, there are also some fun titles that I wanted to highlight. One is another title in the Fun Jungle series. I haven't read anything in the Fun Jungle series yet. It's by Stuart Gibbs, who is the author of Spy School, which I also actually haven't read yet. But the Fun Jungle series, I don't know how many titles it has now. I've probably seen at least 5, maybe it has more. But they have very clever titles and fun cover design. This one's called Bare Bottom. Another one is called Pandemonium, or something like that. So they're very intriguing. I think I need to check out one and see how I enjoy it. There's also a book coming from Dunke Dratz. She is a Dutch author, and I was unfamiliar with her work, but in seeing this book, it had a really fun-looking cover again. Judging a book by the cover happens more often than we'd like to do, but it is so important. Anyway, this one looks really intriguing. It's called The Goldsmith and the Master Thief, and it's these two twin brothers who choose these two different paths and use their unique abilities. One to become a goldsmith, I guess, or a jeweler, and the other, the master thief. But I guess the author, Duncan Drotz, has a really popular book, The Letter for the King, which is about to come out as a Netflix series if it hasn't already. And so, yeah, that's also on my list. But the one that I want to highlight is this really fun book. So I started reading it. I'm at about 100 out of 400 pages. I have it here on my device. The Strange Worlds Travel Agency. And this has been such a fun book so far. I'm really excited to get through it. The premise is this shop, this travel agency that has a huge collection on the wall of suitcases. And it's not like your average travel agency. From the description, it sounds a lot more like a really cozy, really fun, old-fashioned bookstore with dark wood paneling and this type of stuff. And the head of the agency is, I think his name is Jonathan. And just from the very beginning, there's a lot of intrigue. Like the introduction to in the introduction to the shop, this couple climbs out of this suitcase, sopping wet, and a little sea creature's hanging on to the woman's leg. And Jonathan has this interaction with them where he realizes that they took a magnifying glass, or they had a magnifying glass in their pocket, and he takes it from them. And when they leave, he destroys it. And just right away, you're wondering about what all these different pieces are. What's with the suitcases and what's with the magnifying glasses? And then you get introduced to the main character. Her name's Felicity, but she goes by Flick. And she wanders into the shop, and you discover that only a certain, it's a magical method of traveling through the suitcases, and not everyone is able to see the magic, but she can. And so there's these fun little connections. I definitely feel some connections to Harry Potter there, where it's set in England. And yeah, game clapping. And obviously this, what's that?
I get it today.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and you can, because as I read it, I realized I think this is actually a reissue. I think it's been out for a year, and it's coming out with a new cover. So, but the cover really hooked me, again, judging a book by the cover. And I have a fun note about the cover that I want to share in one second. But along the Harry Potter connections, I mean, the suitcases definitely gets me thinking about Newt Scamander and Fantastic Beasts, and his magical suitcase. And then the ability for only some people to see or to understand magic. But the premise is these suitcases, they don't just take you to other parts of the world, they take you to other universes. So it's a multiverse setup. But it was so fun. The first world that she visits to get an introduction to magic, the author, I think it's J.D. Lipinski. Yeah, L.D. Lipinski. Just captures your imagination so well with the first world creation. She describes it with a deep blue sky that is nearly black, and these enormous tree branches. So there's enough there to be familiar, but enough that's imaginative. The leaves are made of crystals, and then some insect wings are made of crystals, and it just really captures your imagination. And then also the description of what the world travelers are doing. They are not they have a code of ethics or rules that they follow, and they're all about exploring. They call them custodians and cartographers. So it's about taking good care, being good stewards of these other worlds, and also making it available for other people to explore, not to be greedy, not to bring back magic from another world to your world and take advantage of it, but to be a custodian and a cartographer. And the last thing that I wanted to say about it on the cover is, so I was looking at it and realized, or saw a note, that this cover design is by an illustrator named Matt Rockefeller. And just a fun little book coincidence here that I have to share. We recently sent this book in our book crew picture book boxes. It's called Pop, and the illustrator is Matt Rockefeller. So his illustration style looks familiar. But the thing that I have to say about this Pop, if you haven't read it yet, it's really fun. It's about this little boy who's blowing bubbles and trying to pop every last one. And there's this one bubble that gets away from him. And my boys this week showed me this really cool thing. It's kind of a spoiler, but I don't think it's a problem. So he chases this bubble and it gets clear out of his reach. And the final scene shows that like this alien friend person that he now has a connection to pops the bubble for him on his planet. And my boys showed me that if you take off the dust jacket, it's the reverse, and it's the alien friend on the inside. And so we talk often on the book crew team about like illustrators and book designers who like do Easter eggs on the end pages and other clever things with the illustrations. And I thought that one was really fun. So I had to share that.
I hadn't noticed that on my copy. That's really fun.
Yeah.
And you totally hooked me too. I'm adding that book to my list as well. Sounds fantastic.
It's been really fun so far. So that does it for us with new releases. We have a full list of all of the new releases that we think look promising. We'll link to it in the newsletter and on our reading platform. It's very easy. It's one of the functions that we love is you can filter books to search really easily. So it's easy to filter to books coming out in May, to filter by book type. If you're only looking for board book or picture or chapter book, lots of ways to get right to the book. That's the next book that you or your kid need to read. So be sure to watch for that. And now it's time to move into some recommendations for some different lists to celebrate and highlight this month. So let's kick it off with talking about Teacher Appreciation Day, which is May 2nd.
Right up.
Yes, coming right up. And I think I have that wrong in my notes. When I was looking back at that, it's actually Teacher Appreciation Week, and it lasts the whole week from May 3rd. Right? Yes, through May 7th. Yeah, thanks. So Teacher Appreciation Week, they definitely deserve more than just a single day. And what books do people have to recommend for that celebrate teachers? What do we enjoy?
Well, so we mentioned it in the new release category, but I think the Sakamoto Swim Club is an amazing book for Teacher Appreciation Week, and also blending into, coaches, obviously, but he's a science teacher.
Totally. This is one that I have always liked about Teacher Appreciation. Ben draws trouble, and this little kid just loves artwork. He loves to draw, so he's always sketching, and he has his notebook, and he keeps, well, here's a picture of it. It says, private, Ben Lucan only, keep out. So it's, it's very private to him. And sometimes during classes, he starts sketching some pictures of his teacher and other students. And then one day he loses his precious notebook and he is just terrified. So he's, the next day he rushes back to school to find it, and his teacher has it, and he is so worried that he's going to get in trouble. The great thing about this is what his teacher does. He doesn't get him in trouble, but he sees the great potential that this little kid has. I don't think he's little, but that this, Ben has, and he recommends that he does the illustration, the backdrop for the school play. So he gets to use his amazing talent and serve the students. And so I just thought that was so neat that, the teacher didn't get him in trouble, but that he saw his potential and helped him to use it for good. So
my favorite moment of this book, I had grabbed it too, was it says, after class, Mr. Upright led Ben toward the principal's office and straight past it. The story telling this one I just think is really clever. And I think it's, in the book, Ben is not like drawing malicious pictures of his classmates or his teacher. He's just expressing himself in drawing, which
is great. Thank you, Jane. I'm glad you shared that. That's such a fun moment.
Oh, sorry. gonna say you have to love the teacher who takes the high road, who sees the potential and diverts it to a good outlet. Love it.
Yes. I just had one that I want to share that ties in with the art aspect, and it's called The Art of Miss Chu. Have you guys read this one?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I read it for the first time. It's a pretty popular one, but I read it for the first time this week. I grabbed it from the library, and it's about this girl, and she has trouble reading, so she has a hard time taking tests, and you find out it's because she looks at the design of the words in the white space, which her art teacher helps her figure out. And there are two fabulous teachers in this book. Her main school teacher, who gives her more time on her tests and really helps her, and also introduces her to this other art teacher and has her go to these art classes. It's the high school art teacher, and this art teacher helps her figure out this reading problem and helps her see her potential and really grow as an artist and a student, and helps her see a reading specialist too, to work together to get her reading going better. But there's one moment in the book where her main teacher has to leave to go home for a family issue, and a substitute teacher comes, and she's awful and mean and tries her best to get this girl out of art classes. She makes everyone meet with the principal, I think, and the adults, and is really cracking down, saying like she shouldn't be in art classes. She should just be studying for these tests because she's not doing well, and just not really looking at her as an individual and realizing all the things they could do to help her and buoy her up, which the other teachers do. So it gives that great contrast and shows how great these teachers are. So that one was fabulous.
I think Patricia Polacco does, of all the teacher books I can think of, I feel like she's written the most like wonderfully impactful teacher books. I mean, Thank You, Mr. Falker is one that always comes to mind for me for teacher appreciation. Mr. Lincoln's Way is about a principal. And then the Junkyard Wonders. And I love how often she writes from her personal experience too. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. Lots of good titles from her to enjoy for teacher appreciation. Speaking of substitute teachers, though, I have to point out one of my favorite teacher books celebrating teachers is Miss Nilsson is Missing. This is such a classic. I think it's very well known, but it's so fun to read about Miss Nilsson's disruptive class who aren't behaving themselves, and her solution is to go get a substitute teacher, Miss Viola Swamp, who gets the kids back in shape so that when Miss Nilsson comes back, and there are enough hints there that you realize who Miss Viola Swamp is, and it's Miss Nilsson in disguise. And it's a really creative, really fun picture book that I enjoy for teachers. But a couple that I wanted to mention for teachers that I have here. One, I just finished reading The Science of Breakable Things. This is by Tay Keller, and she just won this year's Newbery Medal for her book.
How to Trap a Tiger.
How to Trap a Tiger.
Oh yeah. I don't think it's how.
Yeah, it is something about Trap a Tiger. I'm blanking on what the.
I'll look it up. What you talk about.
When? Is it
when Trap Tiger?
I think it's when.
So anyway, I haven't read her Newbery Medal book yet, but her writing. Can you say it again? When You Trap a Tiger. Great. So that won the Newbery Medal. The Science of Breakable Things her writing is so smooth, just so easy to read and so enjoyable, and such a good storyteller. And one of the main points of this, one of the main themes of the book, or one of the main parts of the plot, is the main character is having a tough time at home. Her mom is, from her understanding, she's been fired from work, and her boss was the main character. Her name's Natalie's best friend's mom. So she got fired. Her mom got fired by her best friend's mom. Her mom is now is depressed and won't leave her room. So things are tough at home. And the main character, Natalie, she has a science teacher. Here we are again with the science teachers, who's like over the top enthusiastic about science, kind of like, but one of those teachers who like is so into it that it actually starts to wear off on the students or rub off on the students. And Keller's writing is just really fun. Like she observes how in one funny part just says like the teacher uses too many hashtags, or maybe she says he hashtags things that he shouldn't hashtag, and he uses Z's instead of S's, which like he's trying to be cool, but he's, missing the point, but he's just so sincere about it that the students do appreciate it. And through his encouragement, Natalie and a couple of friends get together for a science experiment, and the infamous egg drop from like 3 stories. And it's it's just really fun because his encouragement like helps her build these friendships that she really needs right now, and helps her have some stability in her life and some friendship when things are really tough at home. And one other to mention is this Dr. Seuss title, Hooray for Diff and Doofer Day.
So many books.
Yeah. This one was a partially finished manuscript, like just a few ideas from Dr. Seuss that were fleshed out and finished by author Jack Prelutsky and illustrator Lane Smith. So Lane Smith is well known for like Stinky Cheese Man, and you recognize his style. But I love Diff and Doofer Day because the school is very unorthodox and unconventional, and then there's a test, sort of like a statewide test, and the principal is really nervous, but you find that these teachers' unconventional ways have prepared the students really well, and they ace the test, and it's a happy day in Diff and Doofer Day.
Mm-hmm. Chandler mentioned that when we were homeschooling, kind of given me the hope that they were learning more than I thought they were learning, which was really nice. So I'm going to have to read that one.
Nice.
Yes, thank you, teachers.
All right, so another exciting holiday coming up, Cinco de Mayo. Also the same week. Lots to celebrate. First week of May.
I had to throw this one on the list because I spent 2 years as a missionary in Mexico, so I developed a real love for Mexico and its heritage and culture. And was telling Tiffany, I actually don't remember people celebrating Cinco de Mayo a whole lot in Mexico. Maybe I missed it, but I also think maybe it's like more of an American holiday to celebrate. But we always love to incorporate Mexican traditions and culture into our celebrations, like Three Kings Day around the holidays. So I just wanted to highlight one book for this. This is Vamos, Let's Go to the Market. This is by Raul III. It's part of a series of books. It's just so like authentic and fun inside it's like a Richard Scarry type. There's so much to study on every page, so many fun details to observe. If you know Spanish or recognize like Spanish words, there's just lots of fun little inclusions there and lots of details that feel very authentic to Mexico. And he has a couple of fun, easy readers coming out now as well. Like this character is Little Lobo, and he has a luchador. He's a big fan of luchadores, the wrestlers that wear masks. And his favorite wrestler is El Toro. And at the end of this book, he gets to meet El Toro. And now these new easy readers that Raul III has coming out are about El Toro and his wrestling friends, or his friends anyway. So some fun titles to look out for.
Awesome.
Yeah, that sounds fun. I wish our family reunion was this next month instead of in June, so it could help us celebrate.
Would love to do that.
Let's talk about Memorial Day, shall we? Since May is just full of holidays. Well, it's near the end of the month, so a little bit spread out.
Yeah, I feel like Memorial Day is a fun one. Just school's getting out, summer's coming. barbecues, and of course, the memorial of these people who have served our country. So some great books here.
Yeah, I can start by sharing one that I really loved. I read it. I just grabbed this one from the library too. It's called Proud as a Peacock, Brave as a Lion. And sorry, there's a glare. This one was really fun. It uses animal-related similes, like the proud as a peacock, brave as a beaver or lion. I can't remember what the beaver one was. And it does a great job of showing it all through this grandson's eyes. And he's with his papa, who had served, and it talks about him serving in the war using these similes. So he shares how he felt proud as a peacock in his uniform when he first joined. And I mean, the last page is really touching. It talks about them visiting the grave of one of his friends who died while serving, and the son asks how the grandpa's doing, and he says he's remembering, and he said, well, let's be elephants because elephants never forget. And I thought that was really sweet and a touching book, shared through the eye of a child that's meaningful, and I thought it was a great one for the holiday. So
It's really cool, really cute.
Speaking of grandsons and grandpas, there's one that I wanted to highlight. Rolling Thunder. This is by Kate Messner, and it celebrates the annual Rolling Thunder motorcycle parade that takes place over Memorial Day weekend in Washington, D.C. And this is also shared through the eyes of a grandson that gets to ride along in the motorcycle with his grandpa as they go through the parade and visit the Vietnam Veterans Memorial and meet his comrades, his fellow soldiers, and all through the eyes of the kid. And it's rhyming and really well done. Neat illustrations.
Nice. One other that I wanted to, I have two others I want to share about actually. I just wanted to show a page from it too. Have you guys read Blue Skies, White Stars? This one's really great. I think it's written by, I want to say it's a Caldecott winning creative. But I'll just show you this page. It says, sewn together, one nation, and then sewn together, one nation, or sew together, one nation. Sorry. So the illustrations and the text kind of play on words all throughout, and it's just limited text like that, but beautiful illustrations and kind of going through, like there's a baseball field, All-American, and goes through different scenes that really make you feel this sense of patriotism and inspires that within. And it's a beautiful, more simple book, but a fabulous one. And then, okay, one other that I'll share. I read this one this is Jill Biden's. So, Don't Forget, God Bless Our Troops. And this one's through the eyes of a young girl, and her father is serving. And it talks about her being brave and remembering her father, and she tells her brother to be brave when he's sad, and just how she remembers him throughout their daily life. And it gives a good inside look, I think, to the service and sacrifice of the families of those serving as well. And I love the ending too, when the father comes home and she says, "You're so brave," and he says, "You're so brave." And it's really sweet. I don't love the illustrations on this one, to be honest. So there's that, but I'll show you a page. But the story is great.
One more that we have to highlight for Memorial Day is that there's a new release coming out called Day for Remembering, and it is inspired by the true events of the first Memorial Day. So I have not read it yet, but it looks very promising and would be a great addition it looks like it goes on sale May 11th. So something to check out this year for Memorial Day.
And I just want to mention the book group platform is such a good place to find books about topics like this, Memorial Day. Going to the library is great if you know what you're looking for, but if you type in Memorial Day there, it kind of brings up those just factual books. So go to the list. We'll have it linked below, and there are so many great books about Memorial Day.
Yeah, that's where I found all of these that I just shared.
And we love having input from the community. So if you have a Memorial Day book that you love that's not on our list, you can add that tag to a book and it'll go through the approvals process. But you can help other community members find some of your favorite books too. We always appreciate that.
Yes, definitely. Thank you.
So the last list that we want to highlight this month is our gardening list. And
first, show of hands, who's planting a garden this year?
Let me plant some tomatoes.
Okay, we're gonna help my parents with their garden, but I'm not planting a garden. They're like black thumbs. I can't keep a single house plant alive.
I'm practicing house plants, but not a real garden.
Good place to start, Becca.
What will you what do your parents, what will be grown in the garden, Jane? Anything?
My parents have 4 raised beds. Fitz likes to call it his farm back there. So he goes and digs with Grandpa. They're planting peas and tomatoes, potatoes, carrots, raspberries, I think this year. No, not raspberries, strawberries. Sorry, raspberries, chrome bushes. We did talk about getting some raspberry bushes, but they'll be planting strawberries. Lettuce normally gets planted. My parents have had a garden for as long as I can remember. My dad's a good gardener, and my mom.
Nice.
They're willing to put in the effort to do the weeding and maintenance and stuff.
Sounds really great.
Yeah.
What a great project for Fitz to work on with his grandpa. That's awesome.
You know, he's got his own little wheelbarrow that's just his size. It's really cute.
Yeah.
So fun.
What's going in your guys' garden?
About the only thing that I know, I think Tiffany said that I know grows is tomatoes.
Lots of crazy salad.
Yeah.
Maybe some zucchini. Heard it's easy to.
Zucchini, you can't stop that stuff from growing.
Yeah.
That one's dangerous. So.
But the thing that we love to do with zucchini, I don't necessarily love zucchini, except my mom always made zucchini bread. We love mom's zucchini bread. So
we love that here too. So good asks to make it.
Yeah.
Okay. Enough about us. Back to the gardening list that you were talking about.
Well, such a good way to get excited about it, because it's fun to think about gardening. And yeah, there are surprising, I mean, maybe it's not surprising, but there are some terrific titles out there about gardening that I think, Fitz, as he's like working with his grandpa in the garden, would love. Kids at that age are going to love some of these picture books. The ones that I wanted to highlight, I actually have loved discovering a few lately about urban gardens. So again, these will be linked, but just a couple to highlight. There's one called When Grandma Gives You a Lemon Tree that I think I read last year. And I loved this story because this little girl's birthday is coming up and she's hoping that she's going to get some electronics from her grandma. And instead her grandma gives her a lemon tree and she's really disappointed. But she decides to make the most of it. And so she takes care of this lemon tree and grows lemons. And then her grandma comes back around and helps her turn the lemons into lemonade. And then she sells the lemonade and then she has money and she heads to the store. And the ending is terrific because you think she's headed to buy the electronics that she wanted in the first place, which she'd be very justified in doing. But the final scene shows that instead she went and bought more things for the garden. And it's really fun. And one tiny little detail in it that I really liked is there's something about fire hydrants in the city that I don't know, maybe there's a reason for it, but they are often spraying and leaking and running water. And the illustrator included that fun little detail as the girl's like taking care of her plant. I can't remember if she waters it from the hydrant or if it's just spraying, but when I saw that, I was like, oh yeah, that's very legit. The hydrants are always spraying water. I don't know why.
I really like the end papers on that one too. If I remember correctly, the first spread is like before the lemon tree, and then the after spread is the neighborhood after the lemon tree. And it's fun to like look for the little differences there. Plus, the entrepreneurship additional vibe is great too.
Totally. And if you also like urban gardens, just a couple others to mention. There's one about a urban garden in Brooklyn. I guess these are all in New York, and another about urban gardening in Harlem, which were both also really neat, and we'll have those linked.
Nice. I just read one about an urban garden, and I don't know where it's actually set. I don't know if I missed that detail or if it doesn't share, but this book is really fun because it's written all in letters from this girl, and she is going to live with her uncle because her mother and father don't have work at the time, and she had been living with them and her grandma. Now she's going to live with her uncle who has a bakery, and she is hoping that there is enough soil or something that she can garden with. And she writes in letters the whole way to her family or to her uncle. Well, not to her uncle, just to her family back home. But so there's always a letter of text. And one detail that I loved is her grandma sends her in one of the letters back, there's dirt in the envelope that pours out when she opens it. Anyway, it's a really cute story, and her uncle like never smiles, but she thinks she's like wearing him down and gonna get a smile out of him, and she creates this beautiful rooftop garden scene as a surprise for her uncle. So it's a fun one. Oh, and it's called The Gardener. I forgot to say the title. The Gardener.
That sounds like a cute premise.
Yeah, it was really fun.
This is a much smaller gardening scope, but Rosie Sprout's Time to Shine, we like this one here. And it's about a school classroom that they plant little seedlings in little pots. And there's one little girl that is intent on being the best at everything, and she's competing with this other girl. And then the other girl gets sick. She gets the chicken pox and has to stay home for a couple of weeks. And at first, she like goes and like puts soil on top of the other girl's plant, so her plant won't be able to grow while she's gone, and she'll win. But then she feels bad about it and ends up, rescuing the plant and taking care of both plants for the whole time the girl is out with chicken pox. When the other girl comes back, she sees that, these two plants have far outshone all the other plants in the classroom. It's really cute.
That's cute. I like that. There's another cute gardening book. I think all of us, maybe most, but I think all of us here like the book called Grandpa Green. I actually don't have my copy here, but this is such a cute story about a topiary garden. So this grandpa, he trims his hedges into the most amazing sculptures. And as you go throughout the book, it tells kind of the story of the grandpa's life, of when he got chicken pox and when he was in the war and when he met his wife, the grandma. And, the boy just he kind of follows the grandpa along and, picks up his hat. And it's so cute to see how he's learning about the grandpa throughout the story. And the grandpa has even sculpted the little boy in a cute little hedge too. And anyway, super, super cute story. Chandler, you had some other points if anybody else wants to talk about it, but we really like that one.
Yeah, I'll just add, I love that it's like at the end you realize that the grandpa is suffering from Alzheimer's or dementia. He's losing those memories, but this is his memory garden, and this is how he's like passing those memories on to this grandson who's totally soaking them in and learning them all, probably without realizing it. He's getting all of this family history. Love it.
Yeah. Thanks.
There's one other that I thought maybe Jane might bring up, but it's Grandpa's Top Threes. And I know that Jane loves this.
I've got it.
Oh, yes.
I do love this one. I'm a I totally love this one. But you're welcome to talk about it.
No, go ahead, Jane. I'd love to.
Yeah. All right. So this is also about a little boy and his grandpa. I love intergenerational stories. I think they're fantastic. If it's an intergenerational story, it always gets like a little bump from my reading. But it's about a little boy and his grandpa, and he's always gardening. And the little boy is kind of like confused why he's gardening, and he wants grandpa to do other things with him. So it turns out that they start doing these top threes. And he asks his grandpa, like, well, grandpa, like, what are your top 3 sandwiches? And then Henry gives him his top 3 sandwiches. And they talk about their top 3 jellyfish and like these really specific things. And then in the end, we kind of learned that the grandpa is he's really sad. He lost his wife, and he just kind of like dealing with that through his gardening. But Henry and his personal, like actually interested in grandpa questions kind of draw him out and have this really cute relationship.
That one is it'll make you cry, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. There's one more that I would be sad if we didn't share about. So it's called My Garden. I don't actually know how you say his last name because I never said it out loud. Kevin Hanks, Kevin Hankies. I don't know.
I'm pretty sure I butchered it on our last call too. So one of these times we're going to do our research.
Yes. But this one just hits home with my feelings of gardening. I think because I hate weeding. I always hated that job growing up, and I hate like the bugs and the worms and everything. And I just want a beautiful garden to effortlessly appear in front of me. And this little girl talks about her ideal garden. She talks about how she helps her mom in her garden, but her garden would have special things like flowers that change colors and go in stripes and polka dots. And then my favorite page is in her garden, the rabbits wouldn't eat the lettuce because the rabbits would be chocolate and she would eat them. So that gives you a good taste of this book, I think. It's really cute and has that personality in it.
How funny. That's great.
I would like to just come through with a breaking announcement. It's Hankus.
Hankus.
Thank you. Thank you, Jane.
Sorry to cut you off, Jen.
No, that's fine. I think that might wrap it up. There are a couple other books that I pulled out for gardening, but maybe this wraps it up, and you can check out the others on our list. Again, we'll have all of those, the full list of book recommendations for these topics in our newsletter. They're on the platform, accessible, super easy to find. And speaking of that, we just wanted to highlight one tip about using the reading platform. So a little history might be interesting. I mean, we started Book Crew 6 years ago, finding amazing books to send to families to build their home libraries. And what we found is we were compiling just a lot of information about a lot of books, and we referenced it and we used it, but we wanted to make it more accessible to our community and make it easier for families to track what books they were reading, what books they owned, what books they wanted to own or wanted to check out from the library. And so we're fortunate to have a terrific developer on the team and built this amazing platform, which, by the way, is about to get a really awesome update. So watch for that. Yeah, we're all excited about that. But the platform is free to the community. So you can create an account for free, and then you can create profiles for each of the readers in your family for your kids. And then you can create these lists of you can create a family reading list. You can create individual lists. As I'm on the platform and I find different books, like I'll save a book for our older son that's like a graphic novel because he's really into graphic novels. And then our middle son, he was in a phase with dragons, so I might see something with dragons, and so I save it to his wish list. And then it comes to be like Christmas time and we're looking for gifts or birthday or just a surprise in general, and we know like right where to look for what is a good book for them. So the
And you can
platforms,
share your list with grandparents and aunts and uncles, and then they know what to get your kid.
power user tip right there. Exactly.
Power user tip is right.
Yeah. So convenient. Such a good gift for a good way to share gift ideas. So one of the things on the book, so create an account. It's really fun to have one. It's a great place to collect and organize your reading life and your family's reading life. And book discovery on the platform is so fun. The platform is really visual, and I love getting on there and finding new books to discover. And one of the best ways, and here comes the tip. That was a lot of build up for the tip. And the tip is, it's really fun to find new books from seeing what the community is reading. So you can see on the community tab what books people have been adding to the platform, what books they've been improving the information for, adding author insights, or adding quote discussion prompts or parent guide information. And it's just always like a fun thing to see what's being read. And I come across new idea every time to save to my wish list. And I just wanted to highlight a couple. This one had been added by someone. I had not known about this book before, and it looked super cool. Really fun illustrations by Alex T. Smith. Kind of a simple, easy reader. So lots of illustrations, big font, wide margins. That page didn't have an illustration, but here is a page with illustrations. So super fun book to come across that I picked up from the library and going to recommend to our early reader who is coming on to like that level of books. And so definitely something fun to keep an eye on there. And we highlight some of those we highlight some of that book discovery in our newsletter as well. So it's a summary that you can check out in the newsletter. That brings us to our last segment. Well, actually our penultimate segment. We have two more. That is the books that we didn't send. And this is when we like to highlight some books that we highly recommend or that we really enjoyed reading, but that we won't be sending in a book group box. So pick it up on your own if it sounds interesting to you. And I'll let Becca kick it off if she has one to share.
Yeah, I do have one. It's called One Wish, and I haven't read the full book, but this one is super suspenseful. So if you have a reader that likes that, it's great. It hooked me, and I was on the edge of my seat and just wanted to keep reading. And it's about a girl who can see fairies that other people can't see. And the fairies aren't like these nice Tinkerbell fairies. They're like, I don't know, they're kind of nuisances sometimes. And she ends up making a friend who can also see the fairies. And so he is in a little bit of trouble. There are people coming after him, and that's where the suspense builds up. But it's a really fun read with cool aspects like a talking tree and these fairies and wishes. So, One Wish.
We will often like share different parts from books with each other to be like, what do you think? Is this good for our audience? And Becca sent me a couple of parts from that book of moments that seemed like particularly scary. And we wondered, is it a little too scary to send in a box? And anyway, it just like, even from a short paragraph, it was very gripping. And I was like, but what happens to the kid, Becca? So even though it won't be going out, it did look like a really interesting one to read, very gripping.
Yes. And I swear we're not even going to see you at the family reunion. You're just going to be sitting there with a pile of books you're trying to catch up on.
You all enjoy each other, and I'll have my nose in a book. Yep. So many books, so little time. But that's what I love about the platform. Sorry to go back to the platform, but it just is relaxing to know, like, I read a quote, in fact, this week, I don't remember who it's from, but just, I've come to terms with the fact that I'll probably own way more books than I ever get around to reading, but it's fun on the platform to just know, like, it's there. I can go and find the book that I wanted to read when I'm in the mood, when it's the right time, like it's saved and I don't have to try to recall it. So yeah, I'll be honest. Yeah, there are some on the list that I probably won't ever read, but I feel good to know that they're there if I need them. One other book that we read that we won't be sending is called The Pumpkin Wars And this was such a fun story. And the premise is that this girl, I can't remember now where she lives, maybe like by the Great Lakes area. And they grow annually these enormous pumpkins, and then they do a race out on the lake in these pumpkins that they hollow out and float in the pumpkin, and they race. And it was just really fun. We considered it for our junior box, so we'd recommend it for like 7 to 10-year-old type reader level. And it was a really fun read. Our oldest saw me reading it, and so he snagged it, and he's now reading it on his shelf, and I've been talking with him about it, and he has enjoyed it. So fun premise. I had no idea you could float in a pumpkin and do races. I hope that's true. Last but not least, we wanted to just talk a little bit about what we as a team are reading. And if you're following us on social media, you'll see that we are sharing each month, not just what we're reading, but what we're buying. Like Jane likes to say, we put our money where our mouth is. Like, what book did we actually shell out cold hard cash to add to our library? So on social media,
getting so many books as we are for samples from publishers, and we have a lot of books even without buying books, but these books, we got what we're buying.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So follow us on social media. If you're following us there, you'll see our snippets that summarize it. But here we wanted to share a little bit more about how that reading has been going, and we'll kick it off.
All right. I want to talk about this one, Iggy Peck and the Mysterious Mansion. So there's a picture book series. Rosie the Riveter is like the kind of title character. But there's like a picture book for each of these characters, and now there's starting to be chapter books for each of these characters. And this series is called The Questionnaires. And I feel like sometimes with early readers, we talked about this, they're just like not that great in terms of like depth of story. I mean, they're good for what they're meant for. But this one's got plenty of pictures, a little bit smaller text than the book you showed, Chandler. But I mean, there's a picture on almost every page. And the writing is fantastic. This story is like super compelling, super interesting. I was reading it aloud to Fitz, and like I wanted to keep reading and figure out what's going to happen. It's a like, fun little mystery element, but not too scary or anything like that. So we're going to be working on getting the rest of the books in these series because it's a great one.
Nice.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, that sounds really fun.
One we bought recently is Harold and the Purple Crayon. I feel like this is a classic that a lot of people have, but we didn't have it on our shelf yet, and we read it just this Sunday with everybody together. And when we finished, our second son was like, I wanted to do that. Just such a fun, imaginative story, and so we really had fun reading that together.
I feel like some classics, you read them later and you're like, ooh. But I feel like that one has aged really well, and we have it too, and we really like it.
Yeah, it has, huh?
And there's been, at least here, no coloring on the walls. I don't know how your house has been.
Thank goodness.
No coloring on the walls here.
We try to keep our crayons out of reach because our little one, she might color on the walls.
The boys were remembering just the other day how one of them colored on the wall with chapstick. So even once the crayons are out of reach, there's still some danger. But yeah, I'm glad you brought that one up. That one was so fun to revisit. It's been a long time, but I remember that as a kid, and I just love how this is, way deep on it. But I love how like Harold just takes this crayon and creates the world that he envisions. And there's a little magical realism because the moon's following him around, and he falls into the like hand-drawn waves and climbs into the hand-drawn boat. But I just love that like empowerment that he has with his crayon, his simple crayon, creates the world.
Solves his problems. Super cute. I love that.
While we're talking about what we're reading, another book that we picked up was The Princess and the Goblin, or The Princess and the Goblins. And when Jane saw that on my list, she said, just, for what it's worth, like I reread this recently and it was pretty boring, I think is what she said. And I thought to myself, hey, Jane calls it like she sees it. That's important. But I thought, well, that's okay. That's your opinion, but I love this book. And so we've been.
Chan and I Probably on the book routine, Chan and I most often disagree about books we like or don't like.
Yeah, it is true. And so
if we send a book in the book group box, that means Chan and I both liked it, and it's going to be fantastic. Both ends of the spectrum. But back to you,
in this case, I'm the spoiler is I am going to agree with you. So we've been reading it as a family, and we're about 5 or 6 chapters into it. Curdy has just like eavesdropped on the Goblin's plans. They didn't know that he was listening to him in the mine, and he knows that they're up to something terrible, and he's following them to figure out what it is. But I have to say, I love this book as a kid, and I'm wondering, like, did I read an abridged version, or like, what's the deal? Because rereading it with the boys, we're going to finish it. I'm going to be glad that we revisited it and that I introduced it to them. But it has been boring. It has been, it has some very like aged, stereotypical like approaches to the story and to the characters of the princess and the prince, and how a princess should behave and be, and that kind of stuff as well. And yeah, it just like, I'm hoping that maybe it picks up steam a little bit. I'm not sure that it will based on Jane's assessment, but yeah, so far, Jane, I'm coming around to where you are. It's not as exciting as I remembered it.
I mean, so to that point, like, I personally think you can't be afraid to quit a book. If you're not liking it, if it's not increasing your joy of reading, I mean, if your kids are liking it, fantastic. But if they also think it's boring, you should give yourself permission to just quit if you want to. My personal,
like you said, Chan, there's a lot of books on the list that we might not ever get to. So
yeah, I agree. I totally agree with you guys, but we have to read. I mean, in my like memory, there's this part where she uses string to like outsmart the goblins, or someone does. There's something with strings and tunnels, and we haven't got there yet. And I've got to at least get to that point to remind myself what that was all about. And yeah, if we're not into it by then, maybe we'll have to. But yeah, we'll see.
Well, I hope it turns out better. I hope you get there and you're happy that you got there. So.
We won't judge you either way if you finish it or if you quit.
Well, one that I want to share, if you're done talking about that one, Chandler.
Yeah, thanks.
One that I want to share is Fanny's Dream. And this is, you love it. I love this one too. My librarian, I remember distinctly her reading this to us. And this one is really fun. It talks about this girl. She lives on the farm, and she has read the story of Cinderella, and she's going to make it happen for her. So on the night of a ball, I think the mayor's throwing, she dresses up in her fanciest dress and goes out and sits and waits for her fairy godmother to come make everything happen and make her live happily ever after. And there's just this fun turn of events. Well, I mean, it's just more realistic than that, and she realizes that, but she ends up living this life on a farm and has kids, and things are great but realistic, and the baby's crying, and anyway, they're working hard on the farm, and a fairy godmother appears way late in the story and says, like, I'm here to take you and make your life happily ever after like you wanted. And she decides that her life is already great just how it is. And I love it. It's a fantastic one.
I need to read that again. It's been a while.
That one and Cinder Edna are like
so good
in my mind.
Yeah.
Well, that wraps up this month's All Booked discussion. So thanks for being with us. Thanks for letting us share some of our reading with you. We love to hear about your reading. So please let us know what you're reading, what you're enjoying. We'll look for you on the platform. Reach out to us by email or on social media. And happy reading.